Hey guys, this is Neil with Catalyst Machine Works, and this is the frame assembly video for our Tasmanian. This is a Beast class machine, also sold as an X class configuration if you so desire. This video is going to cover the frame assembly itself, okay? So this is not an exhaustive step-by-step electronics installation and build video. All right, this is just the frame by itself. Now, with that said, at the end of this video, the very end of this video, we go through and describe the process to build the electronics in. We're not actually going to do it on camera, but we explain the order of operations that you want to build your electronics as you're assembling the frame. So they go hand in hand with this machine, and we've determined sort of the easiest way to go about it. So we're going to go ahead and let you know what we feel is the easiest way to build this guy up and the most efficient way to build it up. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the frame assembly portion of the video. All right, let's get started. So these are the components for the frame. Not everything is actually fitting on the camera view because this thing is just massive. So I couldn't fit the arms. Here is an example of 4 arms. These happen to be the aluminum option. We also sell the carbon fiber option in both the Beast class and the X class length. These are the Beast class aluminum arms here. So for the purposes of this build, I'll be using these arms. But geometry-wise, they're identical to the carbon fiber version, just a different material. All right, so what do we have? We've got the bottom plate, we've got the top plate. These are the 4 motor mounts. This is the lithium battery tray. These are the camera plates here for your FPV camera. This is the access hole cover plate. So there is a big hole in the top of the frame, and you can access the electronics through this hole, and then this cover plate basically covers that up. We're going to have a bag full of standoffs and various fasteners, a few 3D printed parts in here. We've got aluminum arm clamps and screws, and that's all that comes with it, so we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so the first step is to assemble the FPV camera mounting system. This is what it's going to look like on the completed quad. All right, so we'll begin. All right, so what we've got here is the top plate. We've got the camera plates here. Focus, focus. Thank you. We've got the camera plates here. These are 28 millimeter long M3 standoffs. These are little plastic 3D printed camera bulkheads. We've got sheet metal screws. These are number 4 by 1/2 inch long. These are number 4 by 3/8 inch long. And then these are M3 button head screws. And there are 6 of those. First thing you want to do is take one of the camera plates, get one of these bulkheads, and position it like this, where this little thin piece of material is coming up against the camera plate like that. Okay? And then if you hold it like this, this curved part is facing this direction, right? So it looks just like this. Then you want to take these shorter self-tapping screws. These are the 3/8 inch long self-tapping screws, and run those through the holes. Now I want you to keep in mind that you are running a self-tapping screw into a soft material. So if you screw this down too hard and you over torque it, you're going to strip out this plastic component. So what you want to do is
run it in, get it snug, a little bit of resistance on the screwdriver, and then stop. And that's all you need to do. All right, so now the other side needs to be a mirror, because how they're going to work is they're going to sit like this, right? And they're going to have to go in here and mate up to these screw holes here. So you want to run a mirror, so you're going to get this one and do this on the opposite side. Okay, so we're going to do it like this so that it is mirrored, and then we'll run the screws in. All right, so that's how it's going to look right there. All right, we'll go ahead and install this onto the top plate. Now we're going to install these side plates into the top plate. One thing you want to be cognizant of is which side these captive nuts are located on. So you want the plate to extend up in the same direction as the captive nuts, right? So you're going to take and make sure these are sitting on this direction, or facing you rather, and just drop this down through the center. Take these screws, these are the self-tapping screws, these are 1/2 inch long. They're the longer ones. And then go ahead and screw this in place. There we go. So now we're going to go ahead and put the standoffs in. These are the M3 button head screws. And I'm going to go ahead and sit down because I have an old man back. Oh, I make lots of old man sounds, just like that. All right, then that portion is done. Now, obviously, before you put these standoffs in, you probably want to go ahead and put the camera in. In the kit, we provide some M2 screws and washers. They're the perfect length to run through this side plate and then engage with the right amount of thread engagement into the tapped holes on your camera. So that's that. This is what it looks like. Now we'll go to the next step. The next thing we're going to do is install the FPV antenna mount. This can go on the top or the bottom plate. Here's an example of what it looks like installed on the top plate. So you might want to do it this way if you're using one of these little screw-on axis type antennas. But for this build right here, I'm going to go ahead and install it on the bottom plate. You'd want to use that scenario if you're going to use a standard size antenna. And then the antenna is going to run up through this spot here, and you can run a zip tie through to hold it in place. So this is really pretty simple. One thing you want to be aware of is which is the front and the back. So the area with more material right here and a smaller hole, this is the back. So it's going to go right here. These are little socket head M3 screws. And then we've got little nylock M3 nuts here. And that's it. All right, so in this step, what we're going to do is go ahead and start installing some of the standoffs that separate the bottom and top plate. These standoffs are 25 millimeters long. They're the same length, same size as the arms. Okay, so how this is going to work is you're going to install only half of the standoffs per arm. And I'll explain why you're going to do it that way later. But what you also need to pay attention to is which of these holes you're going to install them into. So the way this thing works is you got these big M4 bolts, or M4 screws rather, that run up through these center holes. Okay, and obviously these made up to the holes on the arms. Okay, now there are standoffs that go on either side of this hole. Okay, they don't go in these. These are the holes that are for the TPU speed controller mounts. Okay, they're going to go here and here, here and here, and there and there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install this one, this, and this, and obviously mirror it on the other side over here. Okay, and these are just M3 by 10 millimeter socket head screws. And at this point, you don't need to really crank these standoffs down and tighten them up real tight. Just do it hand tight. There we go. This is what it should look like at this point. Okay. So now what we want to do is go ahead and start putting the arms in. Okay, we'll put the top plate into position. We'll just go back and forth like this until both screws are tight. All right, there we go. Now, I'm going to loosen it up just a bit. Okay. All right, then we're going to continue on with the other arms. I'm going to go ahead and do that portion off camera, and when I come back, all the arms will be joined to this center section. All right, so I've got all of the arms connected here. I want you to pay close attention to something. You'll notice that on this top plate, all of these screw holes are open. The only thing joining the top plate right now to the arms and to the base plate are these screws here. Okay. Now, if I flip the thing over, I've still only got these screws here running into the standoffs. Oops. These here. Okay. And then over here, these. So you can see, well, if I can get this thing. This frame is massive. It hardly fits on in the camera view. You can see these are the only standoffs I've got here. I don't have anything on the interior. And then obviously mirrored on the other side, I've got these standoffs there. Okay, so now the next step is we're going to go ahead and install the battery tray. Okay, to install the battery tray, how it's going to work is this is positioned, this is the front of the craft, this is positioned like so. Okay, these screw holes here accept these screws. These are button head M3, the longer M3 screws, and they run through here. Okay, then you have a little spacer. They've got these black spacers that go here. Then this screw runs into this standoff. So because of that, what you need to do is go ahead and get 4 standoffs right here, and you are going to install them right here, here, there, and there. Obviously you need to have these holes open, so you're going to flip it over. All right, take some more socket head screws like this and install the standoff from the top, only on these spots. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that now. All right, you're going to get this positioned. Come in here and screw it in. Okay, again, at this point, you don't want to tighten this thing down. You want it to be a little bit loose, just snug. There we go. All right, flip it over, and now what we're going to do is go ahead and start installing the tray itself. Get it into position. We'll just do 1 screw at a time. Now, one thing I do need to mention is that you may need to take and push this standoff into place to line it up correctly.
Screws here.
Now, something that is very important that you need to understand about this design. If you're having to take and push a standoff into position and give it a lot of force to get it into position to get this screw in, that is actually by design. The way that this thing is designed is that these 2 standoffs on either side of the arm are designed to be sitting pressed up against this carbon fiber tube on either side. So what this does is it acts like a clamp, right? It's another method of a clamp. So when this big screw comes and pushes down, it wants to compress this tube, and the sides want to bulge out. They want to bulge this way. Well, these standoffs, because they are pressing against this entire surface, are stopping that from happening, so it creates a clamp. Right? So it's a lightweight, inexpensive clamp, essentially. But the caveat is you gotta tinker with these standoffs sometimes to get the screw to go in. It's not hard to do, but I wanted to mention it because if
you're not aware of the fact that this thing is designed to be that way, you might be thinking to yourself, what the hell? Why are these standoffs? Why am I having to push these standoffs to get the screws to line up? All right. Now, the next part are these two holes here. All right, so you want to go ahead and run this in. Use another spacer. This in like this. Oop. Okay. And then you're going to use a nut on the other side. We'll go back later and tighten that down. There we go. That's what it looks like. So, what we can do is go ahead and install the remaining standoffs. Okay, so one thing I wanted to mention is the reason that I installed the exterior standoffs here and not two standoffs on either side, right? The reason I didn't go ahead and pre-install two standoffs on either side is that because these things sit so close to the arm, if you then try and put the arm in there, you're possibly going to scratch the arm, right? So you want to put the other side of standoffs in last. All right, so we've got all the standoffs in. Now we just need to follow up with the rest of the screws. Again, you may have to push the standoff to get the screws to line up. You can go ahead and start torquing down these screws here. All right, we've got all the standoffs installed. All the screws are installed here. And of course, what you want to do is go back through and make sure that everything is nice and tight. All right. So, the next step is to install the motor mounts. All right, so on camera I'm going to do it for one arm,
And of course it's the same for all four. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how the motor mount installs into the arm. I happen to grab one of the carbon fiber Beast Class size arms, and this is how it works. I'm sure it came as no surprise. There's nothing jaw-dropping about accomplishing that. Pretty simple stuff. But that's how it works. You're going to do that for all four arms. And then the very last step is installing this cover plate. There we go.
All right, guys, this is the portion of the video where we're going to talk about the electronics installation into this beast. It's important that you know the correct order of operations to make it easy on yourself with this build. So this is Alan. He's our professional builder. Some of you may have met him. Some may not know who he is, but he knows what he's doing. He actually built this machine, right? So this is my build, but he built it for us because he's a hell of a lot better builder than I am.
It's what I do.
It's what he does.
It's what I do.
So, all right, so I'm going to let him take the reins and discuss it.
All right, guys, so I'm going to give you kind of a order of how to do things to make this a lot easier on you, and stuff I wish I would have known whenever I did this particular build. You're going to start with this base plate, and you're going to build the base plate up to its entirety. So what you want to do is install the PDB into the middle, these 8 standoffs to start, and all 4 ESC mounts. Okay?
Here's the screws here. These little self-tapping screws to hold the ESC mounts in.
Yeah. Already have your ESCs pre-tinned and PDB pre-tinned as well. And with the PDB in here, all this stuff put on there, you're going to want to put your ESCs in there. Now it's a little bit tricky because you're going to be doing some soldering from the side, but you want them installed, that way you can measure wire distance going into the PDB.
I'm going to take these 4 screws off so they can see
Okay.
what the PDB looks like installed. All right, so I have removed this access plate, taken the 4 screws off, and then this is the stack, right? So you can see in here the power distribution board, the flight controller.
Okay. So once you have PDB pre-tinned, ESCs pre-tinned, ESCs installed on the side, it will make it a lot easier to be able to measure wire length from your signal pads and stuff over to the PDB. Once you do all the wiring for the ESC over to PDB, if you take a look over here, you will build up the center stack to its entirety. All your wiring, everything, before you ever mess with top plate. Of course, leave enough length for the camera wires, because it's going to come up through the top plate into the camera. So you'll build up, basically just be working with this bottom plate for almost the entirety of the build.
And your arms are removed during this entire thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You don't want to put the arms on right now, otherwise, because there will be nothing really holding them in place, so you'll be fiddling with them. Which brings me to my next point. After you build up your stack and everything to its entirety, with your arms, you'll want the motors already installed. You'll want, if you ordered these 3D printed parts, you'll want to go ahead and, you know, attach those and get everything ready before you stick it on to the base plate. So this will be the very last thing you do. You'll put these on after you have all that stuff attached, and soldering the motor wires to the ESC will be the very last thing you do. And you can see on this one how, you know, open it is, so it's very simple to be able to do as the very last thing. But I'll show you what I mean by if you try to attach these beforehand. You know, screws go through the bottom here. But if you try to attach it beforehand, then these, you know, are going to be real loose. You're going to be fiddling with it the whole time, and it's no fun. And that's the way I did it on the first build, and it was awful. So just real short and sweet. Arms are going to be the last thing. Base plate, build it up to its entirety. Whenever you put the arms on, you'll want to leave these outer standoffs off. You'll want to put the screws up through the arm first, and then add those standoffs, because these standoffs are made to kind of press against the arm and help hold it sturdy.
Right, and if you if you have these other standoffs in, and you try and put the arm in, they're so tight against the arm, you're probably going to scratch up the carbon fiber or the anodizing off of this aluminum arm. So, okay, well, I guess that pretty much sums everything up. The only other thing, I guess, would be the little mount here for the FPV antenna. There's two options to mount this thing. If you're going to be using one of these little screw-on axis antenna or something similar, then you can mount this piece to the top plate. Or if you have more of a standard long type of FPV antenna, you can mount this to the bottom plate. And then there is a little bit here that you can take a zip tie and run through these slots, then around the antenna to provide a stress relief and hold it in place. So that's how that works. But I suppose that's it.
Yeah, pretty simple. As long as you do that, it'll make this build a lot easier for you.
Right. If you have any questions, email us at info@catalystmachineworks.com or support@catalystmachineworks.com, and we'll get it all sorted out for you.